Hi, welcome to the Conversation Shop with Sedrick Page. I'm here with my very special guest, young Kyle of Dragonfire Farms of Michigan, promoting sustainable farming. Young Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Man, very excited about having you today. I've been watching you from afar, and quite frankly, when I met your dad a couple of months ago, he shared your story with me, which I think is an amazing story, and quite frankly, is inspiring, especially from someone of your age. So what I'd like to do, young Kyle, if you don't mind, start by just telling my audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, and then take us on the journey, your journey of, living in Colorado, being a healthy, active young person, very involved in sports, and navigating some of the things that you were experiencing there, which led you into being the owner of Dragonfire Farms and promoting sustainable farming.
Yep. So my name is young Kyle. I'm, as Sedrick said, I'm the owner of Dragonfire Farms. Basically, my journey started back in Colorado, say about 5 years ago. We'll call it 7 years ago.
Okay.
So we moved to a new house, and that house, it had more land. It was out in the country, which supported the kind of activities that I liked. I was into fishing and a little bit of hunting, and I liked open space because I was really into sports. I was playing baseball and football really competitively, doing a lot of weightlifting and training all at the time. So I was into a lot of activities. So all the space was awesome. We were really pumped about the house, but what we didn't really consider was all the Monsanto farms that were surrounding, basically on all four sides. We basically were exposed to tons of crop dusting, of Roundup, herbicides, fungicides, all kinds of insecticides. They're spraying a bunch of stuff out of planes basically every spring and fall. And our house was obviously caught in the drift. So eventually, probably a year after we moved to this new house, I started experiencing a lot of injuries in my sports, issues with my back. Just my body wasn't the same as it used to be. And that just kind of continued until about sophomore year of high school. By then, I had stopped playing football. It was just taking too heavy of a toll on my body. So I was just focusing on baseball at the time. And so basically, around sophomore year, beginning of it, I got mono, which is a pretty serious sickness. Took out my spleen and liver pretty badly for about a month or two. And those were really the only things that were cleansing my body of all these heavy toxins and metals that I was being exposed to by the agriculture around my house. So basically, my body got really backed up with heavy metals. I got pretty severe poisoning basically for about 3 years after that. And it just completely changed my life. I went from being really strong and active to not being able to engage in sports like I used to be. I had to stop lifting pretty much. Just the physical toll of all the sports, along with my body fighting off the chemicals, was just too much for it. So I couldn't maintain both.
Okay.
Basically, I was forced to move from my house.
Really?
Oh.
How did you find out? How did you guys figure out it was from the pesticides?
We've always been kind of organically minded. We've always been conscious of our food. So when we started to notice the crop dusting and just notice all that stuff, we started to get suspicious that that's what was causing the just sudden degradation of my health.
I got you.
So yeah, that's really what kind of pointed us that way. Then we went to a few alternative practitioners, and they instantly confirmed this with a bunch of blood tests and other things showing heavy metals in my bloodstream. A lot of other, a lot of nasty things, a lot of hormone imbalances and issues with a lot of organs, all caused from the exposure. So that led to a lot of issues, basically.
Now, during this time, I want you to share with my audience, you really couldn't eat anything. I mean, you were really, this was really affecting you.
Yeah, I could eat. It was just, it was hard to know when I could eat. My stomach was just, I'll say bipolar. It's not really a good way to describe it, but one minute it'd be hungry, one minute it's not. It was just switching back and forth, and I would get nauseous all the time. And
so
my body wasn't regulating itself. It was just very busy fighting off all the things. So I basically had to switch to doing a lot of smoothies. I would start my morning, because the morning was the worst for sure.
Okay.
I would start my morning with a smoothie just to settle my stomach, basically.
Now, once you got into the smoothies and got into the different kinds of juicing that you kind of had to do to make sure that your body was being nourished, and quite frankly, I think it's funny how God takes care of us, because from what I know about juicing and homeopathic medicine, that was probably the best thing you could have been doing for yourself, was juicing. So as you're, trying to get nourishment and you're juicing, when did you start to become interested in sustainable farming, natural remedies, homeopathic medicine? Walk me to that a little bit. Take me on that journey a little bit.
Well, I'd say during those 3 years when I was down bad, like sick with the toxic poisoning, just in my bloodstream was just really bad through those 3 years. I was just in a weird place, just pretty depressed, and obviously just not who I was before.
Mm-hmm.
And I was basically figuring out how I could pull myself out of this and do something to stop this this type of agriculture, or not necessarily stop it, but promote a better alternative, basically. And so I just did a ton of research, just free source information, just used the internet and read a lot of books. And
because I'm sure you wanted to just take control of your life, take your life back. I'm sure that you
trapped, basically.
Yeah, and reading into this and learning, I'm sure, was your way of controlling your destiny. Because I'm sure you just felt, I haven't experienced anything like what you've gone through, but I would assume, and I apologize if I'm wrong, that you kind of felt like you couldn't control anything.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then from there, as you were reading, what about those readings into sustainability jumped off the pages to inspire you to do it yourself? Like, what made you go, you know what, let me sit down with my family and tell them what I want to do? Or what made you just go buy the first plan? Or what made you just do it?
It just made sense. I just saw the flaws really quickly in modern agriculture, and saw that all these ancient techniques that have been around for thousands and thousands of years, like, they just work way better. And there's possibly not on a large scale, but there's alternatives with community agriculture that would support all the people, and there wouldn't be any issues. So
talk to me. It
was a no-brainer for me.
Okay, talk to me a little bit about these ancient remedies that you were coming across. If you don't mind, share with my audience a little bit some of those things, those remedies that you, number one, that meant the most to you, and the ones that you've implemented yourself.
Yeah, so while I was sick, I was doing all kinds of alternative medicines. Basically, I just lost all trust in any of the big pharma, big ag, all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't going to turn to the modern medicine. I knew they were the same head, same snake. It's all the same.
It was a hydra.
So yeah, it's all nasty stuff. So I just stayed away from that and went the alternative way. And basically, I was doing a bunch of alternative ancient Chinese herbs,
Okay.
and also ancient Tibetan Ayurvedic herbs.
Okay. And what are Ayurvedic herbs? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. They're very foreign herbs. I believe I don't know much about it.
Okay.
It's foreign.
Not a problem.
I believe somewhere in the Himalayas it's practiced. I'm not quite sure.
Okay. And those herbs were to cleanse your body?
They're all cleansing herbs that would basically assist my body in pushing all the heavy metals out while supporting all of the organs that were being attacked basically by
Okay.
chemicals.
And those things were working for you and continue to work for you?
Yeah. They work slowly, obviously, and it was a painful process, basically venting all this stuff. But it definitely works. I'm feeling like pretty much back to myself.
Okay.
Now that we've moved to Michigan and got out of the environment.
Okay.
It was just while I was in Colorado, we were still taking in all the pesticides still. So anything I was cleansing was kind of being taken right back in.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't really until we moved that the herbs really kicked in and did their duty. But
Okay.
on top of the herbs, I also I came across cannabis and CBD oil, Rick Simpson oil.
Okay.
Basically tinctures, oral tinctures that you can take. They support your immune system and help cleanse your body. They do tons and tons of things. I won't get into it, but
actually on the next segment, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about that a little bit. I want you to talk about some of those tinctures and the things that you've learned about the medicinal benefits of some of those. I don't know. I'm sure there's people in my audience that could benefit from your knowledge in this space. We'll be right back on The Conversation Shop.
So I'm out here building some hugelkultur beds, and I wanted to show you guys kind of what I'm doing for mine. So if you don't know what hugelkultur is, it's basically a gardening method where you bury logs, sticks, leaves, and grass underneath dirt to create a large raised bed or mound that your plants grow into. And so the advantages to this are all the grass and organic material that you put down there, the wood, that all breaks down and turns into nutrients, and the wood creates a massive fungal presence in your soil, which when you're growing cannabis, you want more of a fungal presence. You want like a 20-to-1 fungal to bacterial presence.
Hi, welcome back to The Conversation Shop with Sedrick Page. I'm here with my very special guest, Mr. Young Kyle. I love that name, Mr. Young Kyle of Dragonfire Farms of Michigan. Young Kyle, we're just going to jump right back into the conversation. On the first segment, we were discussing your journey living in Colorado, dealing with Monsanto, dealing with, pesticides, having trace metal poisoning, being a young man navigating these things, and your passion about taking control of your life and healing yourself naturally, and how you've learned from ancient tinctures and various things to kind of flush your body and to get you healthy. But as we ended the first segment, you were talking to us a little bit about CBD oil and some of those tinctures that have great medicinal benefits. So if you don't mind, let's pick up right there and just talk to me and my audience about that.
Yeah, so basically I one of the remedies I ran across, as I said, was CBD oil and RSO oil.
Now, what is RSO oil? I'm sorry.
It's a term. It's Rick Simpson oil is what it stands for. He's a guy out of Canada. He basically he had cancer. He had skin cancer, and I forget some other kind of cancer. But he basically he went to the doctor, tried their remedies, and it wasn't working. So he said, "Screw this, I'm done." He went home, read something that cannabis can be a cancer killer, basically.
Oh, really?
He grew his own plants, and he basically created this way of extracting a full spectrum oil from your cannabis plant.
Really?
This is done by basically taking your dried material and you pour isopropyl alcohol or any other solvent. Basically, it can be benzene, other things. It sounds kind of nasty. I was a little sketched about it first, but basically it pulls all of the oils out of the plant material, and then you can take this mixture of alcohol and the oils and you put it in a rice cooker, and it boils all the alcohol out.
Okay.
And then you end up with a pure full spectrum oil. And it has all of the terpenes, all of the cannabinoids, everything that was contained in the plant. So all of the healing chemicals and compounds that are in the cannabis plant get extracted.
Really? And what is those? What is that oil good for? Like, tell me about how does it help your body?
For topical and also for oral use. So for any skin conditions, you target it with, basically you take a glob of it. It's like a sticky, thick resin. Put it on a spot and cover it with a Band-Aid. And you just keep doing that until it's gone. He had a skin cancer spot that he claimed went away in 7 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. And then the oral option, that's for targeting any other kind of issue in your body. He claims he's cured like 150 different people in his hometown of all kinds of different cancers, everything.
Oh, wow.
Basically, he says you have to take 30 grams within 90 days. You have to eat 30 grams of this very potent, pure oil. It's not an easy thing by any means.
Okay.
But he says he's cured almost like a whole small town up in Canada.
I'm gonna have to look into that. That's quite frankly, this is the first time. This is the first time I've ever heard of that. But talk to me a little bit about the CBD.
So the CBD component, I personally lean more towards the RSO because it is more of a full spectrum medicine. So it has everything from the plant that's there.
Okay.
But CBD oil is a great option for anyone who's underage and anyone who is in a state where cannabis isn't legal. So basically, CBD has a lot of the same healing properties, just not the same. It doesn't pack the same punch.
So the resin still has THC in it?
Yes, it does. It has any compound from the strain that you use to create the extract.
Okay.
So it all depends on what type of cannabis you're using.
Okay.
But yeah, so.
Now the CBD doesn't have THC in it, right? Or does it have small amounts of THC?
It can have up to 0.3% THC contained in it to be legal.
Okay.
Nationwide currently.
And as you're learning about these natural remedies, and you're obviously an entrepreneur because you're a business owner, where do you see this kind of medicinal uses of cannabis going? Is this, I'm completely unfamiliar with this space, and that's why I'm asking the questions that I'm asking. Like, is it really, when you go out and you see it everywhere now, you're going, wow, this is the miracle remedy. And when I hear miracle, it makes me question it.
Yeah.
But when I speak to someone like you that's, have been healing yourself and using it and know about it, it makes me very curious. So if you don't mind going a little bit more into detail.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a lot of people get a little bit carried away saying it's the miracle medicine, all this other stuff. It is amazing, but it's very complex. It takes an immense amount of education to utilize the plant properly. So a lot of people nowadays, they go and they buy an isolate CBD extract, and they think that it's going to cure their cancer, but it's not.
Okay.
There's so much more to it. There's so many more compounds that are in play that will actually assist the CBD and things that it needs to do. It gets extremely complex. I've read like a couple like medical books on cannabis actually, but I don't want to reiterate things that I don't quite understand fully.
Yeah.
But basically, people are too quick to say it's the miracle, and then they try it and they get let down because they're not using it correctly.
Or know how to use it, or going to the gas station buying it. And see, that's what I have a problem with. Like,
there's a lot of salesmen who are using it, saying it's the miracle cure, all this stuff, and they're just selling it to everyone. They're not telling them how to properly use it, and they're not saying, hey, it's only good for this. You should be using the full spectrum if you have this issue. It's like, there's not a lot of education in the market whatsoever.
Okay. Now, as you're learning about these remedies and you're becoming more and more passionate about the things that you're learning because you're living it and healing yourself, take me to how do you start the beginning stages of you starting your farm? Like, how do you go from these remedies with healing yourself to actually farming and choosing what to grow and why to grow?
Well, basically, senior year of high school, I read a couple really good farming books on what's called market gardening. It's really high intensity farming with high output, where you can take a very small chunk of land, such as 1 acre, and get a return such as $100,000 from one growing season off of it.
Really?
There's very remarkable systems out there nowadays that are pulling insane amounts of organic, super nutrient-dense crops at on very small amounts of land. It's very sustainable. And so I read a couple of these books, and I got super inspired, and I actually started working at one of these such farms that was in Longmont. It's called Aspen Moon Farm.
Okay, so you put your time in.
Yeah. Basically, I went and volunteered. Well, I started off as a volunteer and then was hired on as a employee for the summer. Worked at the farm, got to see everything, and yeah, worked from there.
So walk me through, the basics of walk me through some of the things that you've learned, because again, when I look at your Dragonfire Farms and I pay attention to what you're doing, man, it looks like you've been doing this forever. I mean, it looks like you've been doing this. So when you were volunteering, and again, I ask because most of my audience are completely unfamiliar with farming and unfamiliar with what you're doing. So, spoon feed us a little bit about, what you learned that helped you create your own space.
So really at that farm, I didn't learn a whole lot about what I'm doing here, about permaculture and companion planting.
Okay.
It was still rows, but carefully thought out rows that were on a crop rotation that made the farm sustainable.
Okay.
It wasn't impacting the soil in a negative way. They took all the right precautions to make sure the soil was super nutrient dense and that their produce was really good.
Okay. Now you say I hear you refer to rows. So talk to me a little bit about, this misconception about how we should be growing things in rows. When we look at farms, we see rows of plants and rotations. And talk to me a little bit about what that is and why that's not necessarily good.
Well, pretty much like nowadays with modern agriculture, like you said, you look at a farm and it's rows and rows and rows of the same crop, the exact same species, even of like it's the same variety of the same crop. So there's no variation, there's no nothing. It's basically a dead field. There's no biodiversity. There's only one species.
Right.
If you look in nature anywhere that looks healthy, like a forest, you see tons and tons of different plants, and you see a full system in effect. And basically, like, modern agriculture doesn't supply that. So your soils get depleted extremely fast, and the system just doesn't work whatsoever.
Yes, because it's like nutrient deficient soil.
You have to use herbicides. You have to use all these things as Band-Aids to get you through.
Yes.
With one crop, you get one pest on it, and it can just run through your entire crop. There's nothing stopping it.
Gotcha.
But if things broken up, if you have a potato pest right here and it eats one potato, but then it has a bunch of other crops like onions or something right here, and then another potato, they're not going to go through here and can't get to your other plant.
Right, I understand.
If you're smart and you break up your crops in certain ways with companion planting, you can prevent pest issues and other things and create pest resistance in your garden without the use of pesticides and other harmful chemicals.
Okay, hold that thought. We're gonna dig into that a little bit deeper on the next segment. We'll be right back on the Conversation Shop. Hi, welcome back to the Conversation Shop with Sedrick Page. I'm here with my very special guest, young Kyle of Dragonfire Farms in Michigan, sustainability farming at its best. Young Kyle, we were talking about these rows, the traditional way that most of us see farming being done, rotating crops, those kinds of things. I want you to discuss that with me a little bit, share with me why that isn't good. And just to add, as I'm thinking about this, I also want you to talk to me a little bit about these plants now that only grow for one season. So what you're growing, are they seeded plants? Can they grow multiple seasons? So I want you, towards the end, I want you to talk to me a little bit about that as well. Okay? So again, let's go.
Good. All right. So basically the main issue with the rows, as we'll call them, what you see with all modern agriculture, all the farms that you see driving around, is that they are not a full system. They're a lacking system. They're completely weak, and there's no biodiversity to keep the soil and the system sustained.
Okay.
And basically, in a basic system, a living system, you need certain plants like nitrogen fixers. There's tons of different nitrogen fixers in the plant kingdom. They're actually plants that pull atmospheric nitrogen out of the air, transfer it to bacteria nodules on their roots, and these bacteria actually fix this atmospheric nitrogen into either ammonia or a nitrate, which is a plant available form of nitrogen. And so this is a very important process in the nutrient cycle, and a lot of farms completely neglect this, and they only have one crop, which is not a nitrogen fixer. And so that's one example of that's just one part of the system that's lacking. Okay. And there's it's a very complex system with tons of different plants. There's also biodynamic accumulators, which are plants that pull up nutrients from the soil and hold them in their leaves and in their tissues. And then when these plants die off, they become an organic matter and a humus layer. They break down, and they are what feed the next succession of plants. But if there's none of this going on in these crop fields with just one crop, the soil is going to be lacking. Every year it's going to decline.
Okay.
Because there's not these processes. There's not these plants that are adding nitrogen. There's not the plants that are bringing up the nutrients from the soil, making the plant available, and then dying off. There's none of these processes happening there.
Now talk to me about why that's so important to grow your plants in a nutrient-rich environment, and explain to my audience what you mean by nutrient-rich soil.
Yeah. So really today, the reason why a lot of people are getting sick is that they aren't getting the nutrients that they need from their food. As humans, we can't synthesize a lot of the nutrients and minerals that we need to survive and to do natural processes that our body needs. And we need to obtain these from food. And quite frankly, like the way that food is produced nowadays with the rows doesn't supply these nutrients whatsoever. Our soils are so lacking nowadays that these trace minerals are pretty much non-existent. So what I mean by nutrient-rich soil is a soil that has all of these, ideally 90 trace minerals, or what our body really needs to be functioning fully and at just a really healthy, at our like full potential, basically. That's what our soil should have, ideally. And to have this, you have to have, and to sustain it, you have to have a full system that incorporates animals, insects, and multiple different species of plants. And so basically, that's what I'm trying to do here on my farm, is recreate these systems. So.
Now, you use the word of permaculture. Permaculture. Now, talk to me a little bit about permaculture. Tell us what permaculture actually means, and then go into detail discussing that with me. And when you get a chance, please show my audience some of the wonderful gardens that you have behind you as well. By all means, show off.
All right. So basically, permaculture, in basic terms, is agriculture where you're basing your garden on a natural forest ecosystem.
Okay.
So in the forest, you see a lot of, in a perfect forest, you would see a tree in the middle, shrubs around it, like a descending canopy so that everything's getting sunlight. You get shrubs like berries, other things, then herbs, and then ground cover and other lower lying crops. So permaculturists basically plant their gardens and plant things based on guilds, and guilds are basically rings of what I was just talking about. So for example, it could be a fruit tree in the middle with some garlic planted around the ring, like in a ring around it to repel mice and other pests.
Wow.
Then there could be a ring of berry bushes like blueberries, raspberries, all kinds of different things. Then you could have herbs like beneficials like borage, yarrow, all kinds of different things, flowering herbs that would benefit all of the ecosystem, bringing pollinators and beneficial bugs while repelling pests.
Okay.
And then after that, you could have your lower lying ground cover nitrogen fixers such as peas, beans, clover. You could have flowers, all that kind of stuff to bring in more pollinators. Basically, you plant in descending order, and that's like a main principle of permaculture. It's hard to explain it as a whole thing, but that's a good way to describe it to someone who doesn't know what it is. It'd be what you'd see in a permaculture garden.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed when I look at some of the videos that you post on your farm. As you're walking through, it almost looks like you're walking through the forest. It almost looks like you're not, like you're
to recreate.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to me. So now that we understand, your methodology about your farming and the way that you're farming, how do you start it? How do you go from the first plant to tilling the soil to, you've told us how you arrange things and why you would plant in a certain way, but let's say I have a 1 acre, a lot of land, which I do, so you have me very interested in talking to you about it. How do I transform that into something similar to what you have, which I think is amazing? And again, while we're on, and actually, before we go into that, would you mind showing my audience a little bit of your garden? I'm not sure if you could walk around a little bit, but if you don't mind showing us.
So we got some kale right here. We got lettuces down by my feet. There's corn up here, collard greens, chard. We got broccoli. There's an entire patch of tomatoes over here.
Okay.
All kinds of herbs like basil. All of these white flowers that you're seeing are buckwheat.
Okay.
And those are biodynamic accumulators like I was talking about. The ones that pull up minerals from the soil, make the plant available, and then die off. And then I also have crimson clover also all throughout here, nitrogen fixing. We have cucumbers, zucchini, all kinds of different herbs, cilantro.
Okay. And guys, I just want to...
all the culinary herbs.
I just want to tell my audience this. Trust me, his farm is much bigger. He's just showing us some things that he's growing around the home. And again, these are things that we can do as well around the house, around the edges and sides of the home. You can till soil and you can grow various things. In the backyard, you can grow a small garden and really get into sustainability. Different things grow in pots. But again, the way that young cow grows, I think it's amazing. It's the natural way. And one of the things you talked about was, growing garlic, and garlic being a natural repellent to mice and those kinds of things. So, understanding how these plants that you're growing kind of protect each other, and kind of promote everything growing healthy and in a good way. So, do me a favor, again, go into sharing with me, how do you start?
So, for example, I'll just use this garden right here. It was just for the average viewer, this could apply to you. Basically, this was just a normal landscaping with just flowers and a couple bushes that were from Lowe's, which normally are treated with neoinsecticides, which are neurotoxins. Not good. They're what's causing the bee colony collapse disorder. So it's just not a good thing. We ripped all of that out, and there's rock on top, and also some red dyed mulch, which was leaching into the soil underneath. So we took off the top 6 inches of topsoil that was dyed red. And then we came in and we applied a really organic, clean soil that has 70 trace minerals. It was the best that we could source. I found a supplement that has all 90. It's just derived from drying out seawater. So it's just all the nutrients that are in the sea. I'm going to start applying it to here to get all 90 into the garden. But basically, we started with this really clean base soil. We made sure all the waste streams that went into the soil, such as like the main components like the leaves and stuff like that are composted, you have to make sure that those don't have pesticides and other residues on them. So we really did our research on where we got our soil, and it's just going to be different for where you live, because it's going to be local bulk distributors for the most part. Otherwise, it's very, very pricey.
Okay.
But yeah, that's how you start with the super clean organic.
Okay. Hold that thought.
You could just till up your soil, though. I mean, it's better than the grocery market food. I'll tell you that.
Well, hold that thought. We're gonna pick up. Hold that thought. We're gonna pick back on this on the next segment. We'll be right back on the Conversation Shop.
I just wanted to show you guys our chick brooder that we've been using here for about 5 years. Put 4 rounds of chicks through it, and they've all grown up to be super happy and healthy. And it's held up through all the years, so I thought I'd share this design and help you guys maybe make your own if you're looking to start chicks from a real tiny stage. So basically the setup consists of the cage, a heat lamp, a feeder, a stick, a water feeder, and some pine shavings. That's all you need to start some baby chicks. And some food, obviously.
Hi, welcome back to the Conversation Shop with Sedrick Page. I'm here with my very special guest, Mr. Young Kyle of Dragonfire Farms in Michigan. Young Kyle, we're going to jump right back into this. We've talked about sustainability. We've talked about the various kinds of farming. We've talked about how you have structured your farm. So talk to me specifically about Dragonfire Farms of Michigan. Tell my audience again, restate who you are, where they can find you on IG, YouTube. Tell us about yourself.
All right, so once again, I'm Young Kyle. You can find me on Instagram. On my handle on Instagram is dragon.fire.farms. And you can also find me on YouTube. Just type in Dragonfire Farms. I post all kinds of educational videos on what I'm doing out on the farm. I'm really trying to promote this sustainable agriculture and help anyone who's wanting to get started, basically do it for themselves and get some nice tips along the way. I'm all about free sourcing information. It's how I learn. I learned everything that I know from just books and the internet. So I haven't gone to school for any of this. I volunteered at a farm for like one season, and yeah, I'm just doing it. So
I think it's amazing, man. Share with my audience. You're a young man. Most people would think you would be trying to go to the nightclubs every night and on Xbox all day, but I watch you consistently work your farm. So walk us through a typical day of you working your farm. Tell us what that's like.
Yeah, I mean, generally I get up around 5:30 every morning. We have chickens and a few cats. I normally wake up, I make myself a smoothie. My girlfriend lives with me also. She helps out on the farm, so we get up together. We make a smoothie, go out, take care of the animals, which just right now are the barn cats and the chickens.
Okay.
Then we go out to the farm. We take care of all the plants, make sure there's no pests, maintain all the cover crop. Do all that kind of stuff, harvest any crops that are ready to be harvested, any herbs that need to be harvested, get harvested in the morning. I do any plant pruning in the morning. It's the best time. Do a lot of natural like foliar sprays, which are you just spray your plant with basically like a nutrient-rich spray.
Okay.
And so I do that in the morning sometimes. Then I come in, have breakfast, and normally lately I've been taking it easy, so I actually rest for a little bit after breakfast, sit on a heating pad because my back's been hurt.
Okay.
So yeah, it's all about maintaining your body also with farming. It's really tough, but yeah, so lately I've been resting, then I get back out there as soon as I feel good. I do some plant training, make sure everything's looking good. I basically work in the field all day, and then also do projects around the house. Like right now we're building a new indoor grow space to harbor genetics and other things throughout the winter to be able to use next spring. Basically finding pest resistant just plants that will do really well in this climate to be able to use in the next season. It just makes things that much easier. Mm-hmm. It's the way to do it organically. Like it's not a race. So
you're amazing, man. You're amazing. Like I said, and I love it's inspiring to me the support that you have from your family. I mean, I met your dad, man. I think he's an amazing man, and again, the way he just shared his story and your story with me just said a lot about who he is. So again, let's not leave him out, because I want to salute him as well as as your champion and one of your biggest fan and your supporter.
Oh yeah, big shout out to my parents. They support everything that I do. They're funding most of this. I mean, I I didn't have the money to buy all the soil and stuff like that. So
Yes.
really helping out, and they help out anytime that my back is hurt. They pick up the slack, and so they're awesome. Yeah.
Now, how do you turn this into a
Thank you
business?
so much.
How do you turn this into a business?
Oh, so well, right now I've got a custom logo on the way. Got custom apparel, hemp clothing line on the way. I'm looking to really promote the hemp clothing and other hemp products basically to the market. I believe that it's a huge issue that we're all wearing plastic and we're all wearing all this nasty stuff.
Right.
It's not good for us. We're getting, like, petrochemicals are getting leached out of our clothing and into our bodies and stuff. So I'm trying to promote really clean clothing, just a clean lifestyle. So I'm going to just start selling any of our herbal products. We actually make essential oils, other things like that out here.
Okay.
We do like salves. My girlfriend, she makes kombucha, all kinds of cool things.
Okay.
So if we're going to start selling that kind of stuff on our website, it's being built currently. We're working on it. So all that's in the works. And so yeah, that's pretty much, that's like the near future.
Okay.
And I'm looking to work towards basically a community agriculture type deal where everyone is there's not this massive system global trade of goods with all of this carbon emissions and everything. I'd like to have a lot of on-site community workings, basically. Just a really functional, sustainable community would be,
okay,
I think, the way of the future to help reduce a lot of the impact that we're having on this earth. Yeah, so I'd like to basically prove that we can come together as humans and fix this issue on the earth, because things have gotten pretty bad around here, I won't lie.
Yeah, you're talking about a show. That sounds like a good reality show, you know, community farming, community coming together, you know, doing it, showing the benefits of this. As I shared with you earlier, you know, my passion, you know, going through something very traumatic that, you know, I could have easily died from as well, and understanding the benefits of natural remedies, homeopathic medicine, just the way that we eat greens and juicing. So, you know, it changed my life. Yep. And it's very clear that it's changed your life and you found your calling, because I can tell you right now, you have found your calling. I mean, the things that, again, when I watch you in my audience, when you watch and you pay attention to this young man, he doesn't move as if he's new to this. And it's just, it's very striking to me that it's clear that you're still learning, but you have a wealth of knowledge. And the fact that you're okay sharing that knowledge with other people to promote what's important to you, I think speaks volumes about your character, and you're definitely going to be blessed in your walk with that. So I just wanted to share that with you. Why don't you leave my audience with some last words about you, your business, and words of wisdom, anything you want to share with us?
Yeah, so I guess I just really like to share to anyone that's even considering any type of garden or agriculture, or just if you're not happy with what you're doing in life, or if you're feeling stuck, just try farming, try doing something that's going to help the earth. And that would be to me engaging in sustainable agriculture and basically helping heal the earth by breaking the chain of the nasty grocery bought food. This is not good for your health, and it's really destructive for the planet. So I think my words of advice are just to follow your passion and to do whatever your heart's saying. Definitely, it's what I've done, and yeah.
So, young Cal, why don't you share with my audience, what are the plans for the future for Dragonfire Farms of Michigan? Because I see, you've told us a little bit about the expansion, the things that you and your dad are going to be doing, but tell us about where you're going. What do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years with your farms?
Well, currently we're building our brand and just working our way up, looking to build a tiny house and eventually move on a larger plot of land to get this thing more large scale. Down the road, 5 to 10 years, I could see myself starting like a community, a sustainable community, basically, where there's not a bunch of imported goods and there's not the support of these industries that are destroying the earth. Basically, all the global economy and all this global trade is supporting large corporations that are just they're not being stewards of the earth. They're not being respectful of what they need to be doing, and
Well, talk to me real quickly, a little bit about when you say destroying the earth. They're not good shepherds of the earth. You know, some of my audience may not know what that means. What have you found out about what some of these big corporations are doing, not only to the earth, but doing to us as human beings to keep us sick and not to promote health?
I mean, we'll keep it to Monsanto since I already brought them up, but just them as an example. I mean, every single day they're using horrible, harsh chemicals that are terrible for both the environment and the human's health, everyone's health. Okay. It's just terrible. They have no regard for anyone's safety, basically, and that was pretty obvious with how sick I got.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, they're destroying the soil and destroying the environment. So killing us also at the same time, slowly.
Real quickly, I gotta ask for words of wisdom for young people, guys, young women and young men your age. You know, leave us with some words of motivation for them as well.
Well, basically, like, we're the people who have to change everything in this world. I mean, it's all on us. So, I mean, there's better things to be doing than TV and video games. That's all I gotta say. I figured that out a couple of years ago, and I couldn't be happier. I mean, just get outside and put down all the technology.
I got you.
There's bigger things in life, for sure.
Well, young Kyle, I want to thank you very sincerely for being a guest on the Conversation Shop with Sedrick Page. It's been a pleasure and an honor to have you as a guest. But prior to going, I want you again to repeat where my audience can find you on IG and any other social media platform you're on, and how to get in contact with you. I want to make sure they have that information before we go.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
No, you're more than welcome.
So, yeah, you guys can find me on Instagram, dragon.fire.farms. So it's just my company name, Dragonfire Farms, with a period in between the words there. My YouTube, you can find me at Dragonfire Farms. Just look up the name and it should pop up. I've posted, I think, at least 25 videos. That should have a lot more coming soon. So,
well, again, I want to thank you very sincerely for being a guest on the Conversation Shop. I look forward to having you come back and giving us an update on Dragonfire Farms of Michigan. I've really enjoyed having you as a guest. I send you blessings and well wishes. And we'll see you next time on the Conversation Shop.